All right, we'll get going. Welcome back to the group. I see a lot of familiar faces, a couple new ones, and two. So we're going to get going with today's meeting. We'll probably get a few less participants today than after the big announcement last week. There's nothing that was significantly new this week. However, there's no shortage of questions. So that's what we're here for. Our goal today is to go through a couple updates and make sure that we get to your questions on what just really it's an open for any sort of questions on marketing and managing your rental during this time period. The first thing that we wanted to communicate, we'll communicate a few things here and then open it up for questions like we've done in the past few weeks. First thing we want to just talk about is stress the importance of communication. Hopefully everybody here is either they've communicated with their guests, maybe you have guests already in your home, or you're gearing up next week or the next couple weeks for your first guest. And what we want to stress is the communication with your booked guests, whether it's during the booking process or the guests that have booked before this pandemic started. It's critical that everybody communicates with them and let them know of what your standards will be this summer. What will be your turnover process? What will be your cleaning process? Give them reassurance and don't wait for them to contact you. I think it's good to say a lot. If you outreach to them, tell them that you're thinking about what the procedures are going to be, ensuring their safety. So with that in mind, that was one of the things that came out of the governor's phase 2 requirements, was the use of the cleaning checklist and the cleaning log. If you haven't seen it yet, it's up on our blog and we've sent it around via email, talked about it last week, but that's critical to start with. Take a look. You can adapt it if you have other modifications, but it's critical that it is a process that's being followed, and then you can leave it there in your rental so that when people check in, they see, here are the steps that have been taken. It's been signed off by the cleaning company, so they can see that a physical name has signed off to say they have completed this COVID requirements checklist. In the communication process before they arrive, you could even send that checklist to them to let them know this is what they're going to be doing. And wouldn't you want to know if there was any concerns or issues with the process? You want to find that out before they arrive. You don't want to have them walk in and then raise a concern. Then you're dealing with an issue upon their arrival rather than having something that you have a few more days or weeks to address. So that's the first thing that we just wanted to reiterate. And if you haven't seen it, please go check out our blog to download the cleaning checklist. The other item is on a very positive note. As it was mentioned early on before we started the meeting, people have seen the uptick in inquiries. The demand is extraordinarily high right now. We've been talking about it for a few weeks, how we've seen the increase ever since kind of this phased approach back on May 18th was announced. And then it jumped even more so on June 6th when the announcement was made that we were opening up for phase 2. We've actually seen in June, over the previous best June, 178% increase in vacationers. And over last June, we've seen a staggering 308% increase, or 304%. 304%, which is just, it's incredible. And I think it just shows that there are vacationers out there. They're looking, their summers are limited in terms of the activities and the camps and the travel. They're not going to be traveling long distances. So the demand is there. And I would expect that both the demand to remain strong now and this demand to continue through July. There's going to be a lot of people, or July and August, there's going to be a lot of last minute bookings. So hopefully this continues now, get your summers booked, and then any weeks that are remaining, I really do think that the last minute bookings will be strong as well. So Joan, in terms of just talking about some of the ways that people can address that, like right now there is the time that we talk about last minute bookings, and what are some of the ways that you've been recommending to people you've been talking to that can help them with their bookings, in this under the last minute situation?
Yeah. Well, the first thing, not necessarily advice about what to do with last minute bookings, but I just want to, and I know I'm preaching to the choir here because I'm sure you're all keeping up with your calendar, but we're getting complaints daily from vacationers who say that they are not getting a response from some homeowners. And I think that some homeowners are being so overwhelmed with inquiries that they can't keep track of them all. And our best advice is to make sure you reply to each inquiry that comes in. In many cases, you've already booked the week, but you don't want to block it off on your calendar until it's an absolute certainty and you've gotten payment and a signed lease. So we understand that, but get back to them so that they're not left wondering, well, should I move on, or is this still available? Do I have a chance? And so they're starting to contact us. So that's important. But if you do still have some weeks available, you can certainly post an alert. It's, as you know, it's something that you purchase. It's $30 for an alert that alerts people to the fact that you've got a week within the next 4 weeks that's available. But if you have, let's say you have just a couple of days, maybe you have bookings, and then you have a 3 or 4 or 5 day time span in between 2 bookings, and you'd like to rent that on a nightly basis, just temporarily. You can go to your calendar, change your minimum stay, again temporarily, to a lower, fewer days, and then you would be found by the vacationer. You can't put an alert on for less than a week, so you have to have a full week of availability for an alert. But you can say anything in owner special, and just take advantage of the owner specials because they're free for you to use, and it will just highlight anything about that you want to highlight in there. I think that the number of inquiries for longer term, a month or more, is probably going to start to wane as more and more people are all set. But there are still, I think, some, wouldn't you agree, Jim, that are still looking for long term. So if you do that and would like to promote it, put an owner special on that says 32-day stay, incurs no lodging tax. Book 32 days plus and pay no lodging tax. So that's a huge savings for people who can actually swing that length of time. And of course, it's very helpful to us in terms of the cleaning.
I think that's probably mostly true at this stage for, say, September. If you're out, I think many homeowners are unlikely to have a full month available at this stage unless they're starting out with an empty calendar right now. Certainly the demand is there, but I've been helping some folks as well, and it's hard to find consecutive weeks, let alone a month right now for rentals. So certainly if it's something you're promoting off season, I would suggest that. And as Joan mentioned, the short stays, the demand certainly will be high there for last minute bookings for just even 2 or 3 days. It may not be something that's desirable long-term for a homeowner to deal with a turnover like that, a turnover schedule, but just if you have the availability for a given week, temporarily, it's something that you could do to help fill an empty week with 1 or 2 bookings.
Plus, they're willing to pay more per night for a shorter stay, and should be.
Right. And we've always talked about that, not to stress too much on the daily bookings or daily stays, short stays under a week, but the number of listings that are available there's not as many listings available for short, less than 1 week stays during the summer. So you're in the minority if you do switch over to that for a short period of time, which is a reason why some of those do really well on the site. The other question, or the other topic here we wanted to touch upon, was the setting of expectations. I think, again, we've talked about it for a few weeks, how vacationers are just anxious to get away. A lot of people have been quarantining or just isolated in their homes, and they're planning to get away. And a lot of them may just be considering, I just need to get away, get to the beach and relax and get there. And so people understand what that social distancing is still going to occur. Where they're coming from, it's going to remain on the Cape, it's going to remain on the beaches. And so we're promoting that fact. We want people to get back, but we've changed our tagline for the summer is get back responsibly. We want people to be safe. We want both you, the homeowners, to ensure that your environment is safe for your guests, for your service providers, and we want our guests to ensure that they are safe both in your homes and out in the community. So we've been promoting that in our marketing to ensure that our vacationers know what will the Cape and the islands be like, what will different restrictions be, again, at the beaches or in the towns. Joan, what would you suggest to communicate to guests before their arrival? What sort of things have you been talking about?
Yeah, two primary things. One is I think you should warn your guests that they should expect some lines. I was out and about the other day and could see that there were lines of people outside of, for instance, a Christmas tree store, TJ Maxx, and even some supermarkets are allowing only a certain number of people in. So, and that's now before, the prime summer season. So I expect that to be even enhanced when July comes. So you might advise your guests to bring as much as they can so that they don't need to spend time standing outside of a store or a supermarket in line. I think that would be helpful if they could bring as many supplies as they can. The other is to provide them with an updated list. I've started to compile mine with restaurants for outdoor dining and for takeout, and also the coffee shops or ice cream stores, any hints for them of places that they can go, and any little pieces of advice about those places, maybe an ideal time to go, or just any information that you can provide for them is more important this year than any other year, because there's limitations and restrictions, and we just.
Your audio cut out, John.
Mute.
Yeah, there you go.
Am I back again?
You're back on.
Was it something I said?
Maybe.
Anyway, I think giving them as much guidance as you can in terms of places where they can go to get food or takeout or seafood, and because a lot of people just don't know those things, and you can't leave it to them to use their ingenuity to find them. It's you want to make their experience in your home the best it can be.
Right. Every year we recommend homeowners. It's part of the experience. Guests come and they want to know what are the best places to go. And hosts provide them their recommendations and maybe a little inside tip. This year it's a little different, but they still want to have those recommendations on. Everybody knows about, say, Stop and Shop. The one in Orleans if you're in the Lower Cape. But they may not know about another local shopping market that may have delivery. So sending them some information up front. Maybe, as you mentioned, bring as many supplies as you can, but also, if there's something you want to have delivered, you can get delivery from a grocery store, or I think there are some seafood markets. I think I saw one out in Wellfleet. Hatches in Wellfleet was delivering anywhere from Lower Cape up to P-Town. So there are a couple just suggestions on for guests that they may not be aware of, that if you can identify in your local area, that would be a great service for them. All right. Joan, I'm sure there's gonna be a question on cleaning. Do you want to?
Yep.
We'll get to that.
Yep.
All right. So what we're gonna do now is open it up for questions. Let me find the instructions here. I'm gonna chat. If you haven't joined us before and haven't seen the questions on There we go. How to raise your hand. We're going to have people raise their hand, and I will call on them, or I will unmute them one at a time here. Let me do this for a second. And Doug, I've seen your hand up already, so I'm going to call on you first.
Myself.
All right. Hey,
Thank
Doug.
you, Mike. Can you hear me?
Yes, again.
All right. Well, I don't want to be Mr. Obnoxious, like talking too much like last time. But
no.
I have a statement and a question. And the statement has to do with where we are right now. And again, I had mentioned this last time. So everybody on this call has different feelings about what's going on. If you've got a gut feeling about it and you want to like really find out what we're under here, do your due diligence. And that's the last I'll say of that. The other thing, I'm going to read something from that George Santana and Winston Churchill are both credited for saying, and they say, those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it. So if you go through history, I think you'll find out why we are where we are. Then my question is this, much lighter.
I hope so.
I hope so, yeah. Thanks, Joan. So this is kind of skipping forward, but I'd be interested to see how many of the homeowners have been successful with renting. Like our place, we usually rent right up through September and sometimes into the middle of October. But how about, anybody have like October, Christmas, you know, the winter? And maybe because of everyone, especially people in the cities, and I live very close to New York City and I've driven in there a few times, it is very depressing. People want to get out. People want to, maybe this year, people are going to really want, even during those times, to take a vacation. What do you guys think?
There's definitely going to be a demand, just like we saw there was a demand for longer rentals, and 32 plus day rentals were permitted even back in March and April. People were interested in getting away. Since people were working from home, they had the ability to say, well, if I can work from home, I can work from the Cape or the islands. And so people did look for that then. I still, you know, obviously it's not going to be as strong a demand as the summer, but you have to imagine that that's going to be there more so. And so it's going to depend on how you market your home for that. But I really do think, you know, there are going to be folks that are going to still be able to work from home. You know, in this, the businesses are adapting to a new way of life as well. So I think the ability to get away, and I think that demand will be there throughout the fall. So it's something that you can market and hopefully do well at as well.
So you're suggesting also that if we're going to do that on our individual property, we need to make some kind of statement on the website and communicate with our past guests also, which I've done before, with no result, basically. I offered Christmas, and we got a gorgeous house for Christmas. Nobody showed up. But anyway.
Right. Well, that's a challenging one, because people do like to stay home and be in their homes for Christmas and others.
There are a number of things you can do. If you really are interested in renting off season, you make sure you have a monthly price, make sure you still have a weekly price, have a minimum stay if you are amenable to long weekends, because not everyone can rent their home long term. Also post it on our long-term winter rental list. It's available in your, the field for that is available in your description field. And you'll just see there's a box there that you can put anything in there for long-term rental, and then that will go on to our specialized list.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Welcome. Thanks, Doug. Move on to, you're going to have to say, this is Mendy, you're up next, but I believe this is not Mendy. You have to remind me of your name. I'm going to unmute you.
Mendy with 5 children.
Yes, I'm actually Sandra.
Sandra, okay.
Okay, so my question is this. I almost forgot the question because I got so wrapped up with the previous one. But is there a minimum number of hours between the previous guest and when the cleaning person can come in, or when the next guest can check in? I know 6 hours is felt to be maybe safer, but I was hearing also 24 hours. I haven't kept up with that particular aspect of the policy. I was just wondering if you could just review it with me, if there's any concern about my cleaning person going in the same day after the previous tenant have left, and getting the same day check-in at 5 o'clock when the previous tenant left at 11 a.m.
Sure. There is, the guideline is to consider the 24-hour time in between stays, but it is not a requirement. I think the focus then turns to the requirements for cleaning and disinfecting. If your turnover crew can do what's likely to be more in a basic turnover, if they can do that during the turnover time that you have, then a single day check-in, check-out is perfectly fine. Obviously, you also want to check in with your incoming guests to make sure they're fine with that. But assuming both part of the incoming guests are fine with the turnover and your cleaning crew's fine, then the turnover window that you have is fine. And again, you might want to recommend expanding it by an hour or two just to give yourself that breather. I think there's a lot of unknowns this year. Even the cleaning crews can't say how long it exactly is going to take. So if you can expand it by an hour or two, and I think you said 11 to 5, so 6 hours is probably a good amount of time to have.
Plus, don't forget the cleaning crew will come in. They will be wearing masks and gloves, and they're going to be very careful, and they will be doing their cleaning. So I don't think that there's as much hesitation there as it is with vacationers who are coming in. They will not be wearing masks and gloves when they come into your home necessarily. And so those are the people that you should be more concerned about. But I think your time frame sounds fine.
Sounds great. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, next up we have, I believe this is Tom. Welcome, glad you could join us. There you go.
I just wanted to say that I got an email today from Cape Cod magazine that their edition, I think it's just off the press, has all the best on the Cape. So that could be a very nice resource for people that are doing their welcome books.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good one.
That's it.
Okay, thanks, Tom.
Nice to meet you, Tom.
Put a name to a face. All right. Who's up now? We got John Sullivan. There we go.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, John.
Hi.
Tuning in late, missed the beginning. Question for you, maybe covered this already. Is there going to be a problem with existing bed coverings? That is like, we have these quilt-like bed covers. Actually, we replace them every year. So there's new ones on all the beds now. But what do the cleaners have to wash them? Or what's the story with those, do you think?
Okay. Well, here we get into the, the notion of best practice. And probably the best practice is that you either launder them or you can alternate them. Some people are buying duplicates. This is something I did. I bought, lightweight, very washable spreads, duplicates of my existing ones. And the same thing with blankets. So, my linen person will just alternate them. But I just spoke to my cleaner this morning and had an in-depth discussion about the whole process with him. And there were a number of things he said. First, he has a fabric spray that he will use on, and I guess it's very safe, use on sofas, decorative pillows, both sides, he says. And it only takes about 10 minutes to dry, and you don't do anything after you spray it. And he's also doing it on any spreads or blankets that are going to be reused again. But again, we don't have, information we have about soft surfaces is that the the virus doesn't last very long on them.
Yep.
But, you know, the bottom line for all of this is peace of mind. And it's gratifying, I think, to be able to say to our incoming guests, these are the things we've done to guarantee your safety. And even though we know that the chance of the virus spreading from soft surfaces is very low, it still gives them a peace of mind if we've been able to tell them that. So, you know, you could continue to, I think what a lot of people have done with things like heavy quilts that can't really be laundered is they've just removed them and just maybe perhaps left blankets or have additional blankets. But if you get questions from your guests and they're still a little hesitant, then I just recommend that they bring their own.
The spray, you don't happen to know the name of it that he's using?
Oh, well, in fact, I don't know the name of it, but I don't know if those people on the Cape, Ocean State Job Lot apparently has it. So don't all go running there because I have to go out and get some, but that's.
Was there the day before yesterday.
Yeah, so,
we get several things from there.
Yeah.
The other thing is that you're right in terms of the soft surfaces, but latest information, and you don't know how accurate it is that they now think that even short-term contact with somebody that's infected, you don't get the virus. It has to be longer-term contact. So it would seem that surfaces aren't a big problem with the virus. It will keep us rust.
Right.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome. And that's why we're recommending the communication with the guests and reassurance. You know, it's first and foremost, you want to make sure they're feel comfortable coming into your environment, your rental. So communicate how you are managing your turnovers. Next up is Peter. Unmute you here. There we go.
Howdy, Jim. Hi, John.
Hi, Peter.
Hi, Peter.
Just a quick follow-up question to our last call last week. So, Jim, you made reference to a rental agreement template that was somewhere on the website or maybe in a resource folder. I wanted to steal that excerpt about indemnification for illness, etc., and just couldn't find it within the resources. Can you point me to it?
We can. I think Beta can point you to the URL in the chat, but it's our main post on our blog right now.
You mean it was right in front of my face?
Well, you know, you got to know what we'll point you to what it. I mean, I think what you're looking for is in our sample lease, correct, Beta? Beta's probably muted.
It's clause number 16 in the sample lease.
Clause 16.
So you know it by heart, John.
And look for the blog post that's entitled Mandatory Safety Standards. That's the one that if you scroll to the bottom, it has all of our resources and checklists and, you know, a lot of good information.
Yeah, Beta just added the URL to the chat. So
Yeah, I see that. Thank you, guys.
you're welcome.
You're welcome.
All right, next up, Lisa.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Can I just tell you before I go any further, there's a Mr. Singh who keeps raising his hand. I think he doesn't know how to raise your hand thing.
Franklin. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, we'll
Mr.
Franklin
The iPad
Sang.
for Melanie Singh? Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
In the corner. So I'm in London, and obviously the information we get about COVID is slightly different from the US information. And I've been trying to follow both and amalgamate both. In our home, we have an awful lot of bookshelves, and I wondered about whether I had to remove yards and yards of books. So I spoke to a US librarian on Cape Cod, and she said I did not have to do that. So I'm wondering if I don't know what kind of spray you were referring to, Joan. Is it a disinfecting spray, a sanitizing spray? There seems to be some level of deeper cleaning between sanitizing and disinfecting. I mean, I can't imagine that every single guest is going to touch every single book on this shelf. Who knows? Insofar as the quilt coverlet comforter thing is concerned, I've removed them all this year, along with bedside rugs, because I just felt people standing, sitting, that sort of thing, bring your own, bring your own coverlet comforter, and I will continue to supply the linens and so forth. I think the washing, even if you rotate, becomes an awful lot on turnover days. If you're washing, mine's a 4-bedroom home, so if you're washing towels for 8, sheets for 4 beds and so forth, the pillow protectors, the mattress pads, and then the coverlets, they'll never get done. And I know that I'm not the only house they're doing. So, that's the other thing, able to leave at 10 and come not before 5 in order, because I can't guarantee the cleaning crew is going to show at 10 on a Saturday, which is my turnover day. Thank you.
Sure. That's actually a critical point to enforce this year, as we like to do it every year, is make sure that when you establish your check-in, check-out times, make sure that your guests know that they have to adhere to that. You can't have people showing up an hour or 2 early if the cleaning crew is still there. They can't, I wouldn't even recommend them coming into the driveway, dropping things off. You just don't, I would create some clear boundaries on that. And then as well, linens, everyone has to do what works for them, what works for their turnover crew. But keep in mind that I don't think most vacationers are going to mind a little bringing their own linens or bringing their own quilts. Like if they have to bring one of those things, and that's kind of the drawback this year, that they have to do a little more to get on vacation, people are going to be okay with that.
I agree with you. I mean, I haven't had any pushback about saying, look, we're not supplying them this year. And this is after I bought, so many extras. I could probably go 3 weeks before I had to start laundering, but it's too much to keep laundering on a tight turnover. And, even if somebody says I'll leave on Sunday, well, our particular crew doesn't do Sunday turnovers. So, it doesn't help to say, I'll do this, I'll come in a day early, I'll whatever. You kind of have to stick to the arrangement that we already have in place and that has worked, and that I know is going to take them longer this year because of all the extra things that they have to do.
Right.
Lisa, most people in a normal year do not launder their bedspreads and their blankets on a weekly basis. So I would think that for those people who can have duplicates, they wouldn't necessarily need to launder those in between. They just put them aside, they kept somewhere else, and then there's a whole week that goes by between the time the previous guests were there.
I hear what you say. It's just that we are pet friendly, and while I have quite a strict rule about your dog cannot sit on our upholstered furniture or sit or sleep on our beds, nevertheless, if I wouldn't want to go into that sort of a environment where possibly the dog's stretched out and whatever. I wouldn't want my guests to do that either. So everyone does, what they need to do that works for them. And I have the same lightweight type thing that you have. So it doesn't take hours to dry, but certainly on top of everything, I just put everything away this year and said, forget it. And I banned cats because I don't want cats anyway, and I don't want their litter box. And I just think it's unfair to the crew to add an extra layer of, multiple pets, no, one dog we're good with.
Agree. Thank you, Lisa. I agree with you. Keep it simple if you can. If you can simplify things, it's a good way to go. So thanks, Lisa. And move on. I am going to try to find Franklin here. Is that who it was? Franklin, I'm going to unmute you. See if do you still have a question?
Yes. A mattress pad. Are we supposed to watch the mattress pads too?
No one has talked about that. I haven't seen that in any of the literature. Again, when I was speaking with my cleaner this morning, he said that in the houses that he goes into, if there are no linens on the beds, he will use that fabric spray to spray the mattress pads just because, you know, as an extra precaution. But I don't think it's necessary. You're going to have, you know, linens, sheets on top of that. I think it's fine not to have to launder those in between each renter as well.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, next question is, does the short-term occupancy tax prevent you from raising the rates next year?
Why do you say that?
Well, it's the taxes on a $5,000 house. It's like $800 additional tax.
Right.
And if you raise your rates, nobody
gets
can
even
afford
higher.
it anymore.
Yeah. Well, I mean, people in 40 other states, you know, charge a lodging tax, and everyone's in the same boat. So I think vacationers are getting accustomed to having to pay the tax. They don't like it, but I think if you're comfortable with your rate and haven't gone up in a while, I think you should feel free to do that. But you just can't keep it at a certain price just because, you know, of the lodging tax. I know no one likes it, but it's becoming more accepted. Wouldn't you say, Jim?
Yeah, no, I would agree, and you could remind them that they, if they're booking direct, they don't have the additional booking fee, so they're saving on at least on one.
Thank you.
Thanks,
You're
Frank.
welcome.
Cynthia, thank you for waiting. You're up next.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Okay, I'm doing good.
On the Vineyard, right?
Okay, first of all, I want to say thank you guys. I went on the website and I have a whole list of information, especially about the beaches and some of the social distancing. One of the people that is renting from me, this is like a one-day deal. She emailed me, we talked, and she sent me PayPal this morning. So don't we wish all of our people would do that? So that was like really great. But she wanted to know about the beaches. So I just want to say thank you on that, because that whole list from the government had everything about social distancing and stuff. So that was good. That's number one. Number two, I want to get the name of that fabric spray that the gentleman was talking about.
I don't have the name of it, but I guess you're on the Vineyard, so I would just Google it or go to Amazon and just Google fabric spray, disinfectant spray.
Okay, because I hope it's not Febreze. I remember my daughter went to school, she would use Febreze and put on everything.
Yeah, no, I don't know. It's not Febreze. No.
The other little comment I want to make, it's been opening up and most of my weeks are just about booked. And I kind of lowered the price a little bit and it worked. It's not too much, but I lowered a little bit. But I found that people were like saying, oh, I want to rent for 32 days, so I have to pay the tax. But can you give me a rate of $3,200 for the month? I mean, I think that's like a little crazy. and I had two people that came out with that. I mean, that doesn't make any sense.
That they always think, well, it doesn't hurt to try.
Right. Okay, well, that's all I want to say. But I want to say thank you again for all the information you have on the website.
You're very welcome.
Welcome, Cynthia. Thank you. And yeah, unfortunately, you do see that from time to time. With the great number of vacationers that are coming to our site, you know, even yesterday, it was 4 times the number that we usually have on a normal June day. And so with the large numbers, you're going to get people that are searching for deals. You're going to get people that are certainly just asking questions and accepting the rate as is. But there's always people out there that think that they can just combine multiple weeks or a month and say, would you do a deal for me? So that's your call on whether to accept something like that or just say no, the rate is the rate. Mary Ann, you're up next here. Can you hear us, Mary Ann? May need to unmute on your end.
There we go. Sorry.
Okay.
The guest log. If I have guests staying at the house, I know they know people locally. They come to the house, they have dinner. This guest log that I've heard about, I presume that is a requirement. That's for tracing purposes. So if anybody else comes into the house, I need their names and information. Is that correct?
Technically, that's what it's set up for. Yes, that if anybody that, I mean, you should be aware of your service providers and your guests, but if your guests have guests, then I do think you can ask them to provide their names and let you know who's coming by.
I mean, it's informal in an afternoon or something like that, but I just assumed. And then I have other people who have their kids coming for a day from Boston or something like that. So I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly would ask and make that, you know, not every party has other guests come by, but you know, certainly I think it's something worth asking your guests to do, to let you know if anybody comes in.
Okay, thank you.
And some people are asking whether they should leave that there for the guests, or and it all depends. If you live nearby and you're there on every turnover and can pick up that log, that's great. If you're not, then you should just personally keep that log and make sure that your guests will inform you if other people are coming in and, you know, that you hadn't already been informed of, whether they're spending the night or not. If they're there, they are potentially spreaders of the virus and would be important information for the contact purposes.
Yeah, no, I am the turnover. I am the cleaner. I am the turnover and all of that. So it would be easy for me to get.
Yeah. And I would say the most important thing is to get their names, get who came by, just in case you have to go back. You know, if you don't get a phone number from somebody, I mean, that's fine. You're going to have the main party that you can contact and just start a whole contact tracing. And hopefully nobody has to get to that point. But if you do, you have that information. Sure. You're welcome. All right, Nancy. Let's see. Yeah, Nancy, you're up next here.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Oh, hi. I had a question about shower curtain liners. Are people changing those for every single renter, or should we, or I'm not sure.
I'm not. Yeah, I wouldn't think so. I mean,
okay.
Yeah. I mean, people are in the shower, they're washing themselves, their hands, everything. I just don't think that is going to be a place where, you know, a fabric or something that, you know, is going to spread the virus to.
So we'll just assume it'll get washed off with the shower.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
The other question was the cleaning log. Are you leaving it there on site? Like each time the cleaning people come in, they sign and date it?
That is the recommendation, is to work with your cleaners to give them the cleaning checklist and have them sign and date a checklist and leave it at the rental. Yeah.
Okay. All right. That's all. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Joan, you want to add
Yes,
something?
we do want the incoming guest to see it, and this is what can you see that? That's the cleaning protocol and checklist, and then this is the cleaning log that your cleaner would put their name and date and the time that they left your house, and just check off, checklist completed. Right, Jim?
Yep. No, I think that's the intent and purpose, just to let them know cleaners have been here. Here's the time. Here's what they did. That's the guidance that has been requested. All right, moving on. Sandra, you have another question. We can bring you then, Doug, back in.
Sandra, yeah, just one more question.
Sure.
Yeah, regarding the guest list, I did request from my previous guests over the past weekend to give me the list, but it was essentially ignored. So I just feel like I don't want to twist their arm about it. And if there is an issue with contact tracing, I can always go back to the person who booked the reservation perhaps and get a list then. I just wonder how persistent I should be about that. Is it mandatory or is it I mean, obviously, if there's an issue with someone getting infected, then now we have to find all the previous tenants or guests. But I just trying to figure out how persistent I should be about this.
I wouldn't be overly persistent. I mean, I think common sense has to come into play in terms of like, you can't keep tracking them down if they ignore your message and don't send the information. There's not much you can do. Obviously, the main thing is to get your guests' information. Who's the main party and coming? Who are your main service providers coming in and out? The guests, try to get that information. Certainly, the stakes are a little bit higher if you have to do contact tracing, and people will respond to that. But I would do your best to get it if you can, but just not. You don't need to be overly persistent.
Perfect. Thank you.
Sure. Doug, you are back up.
Here I am again. Hi, guys.
Hi.
When we first started renting our home, the Dennis Health Department, in their statement, as requested what we should do, that we keep a list of everyone who stays there. So on every contract, I have every name of the family members that are staying there, all right? Now we're getting into contract tracing. Now, essentially, my feeling would be, this is actually against the constitutional aspect of privacy. So we're going against constitutional law. And I guess for a reason of health, I understand that. At the same time, I'd be very reluctant to give out, if I'm asked by the government, I would certainly want a warrant to be able to give that information out. That's private information. Give the people's name, their address, their phone number, and everybody that came to their home. I think we're running into problems here.
Yeah, I'm less concerned about I understand the privacy information. Anytime you start talking about there's a party that's staying with you, your guests are staying with you, of course you have their information. If somebody has a friend come by, another family member come by, and you ask for their information, you start to get a little more invasive in terms of their private information. You don't need it until the contact tracing needs to occur. At which time then, most people are going to not have too many concerns over contacting your who else was involved. I think for contact tracing, if you just get the names of folks or ask for the names, I'm like we said before to Sandra, like I wouldn't be persistent over it. It's just, it was a request by the guidance of the government and to log who has been in the home. And I just would leave it at that.
That's an excellent answer. Once it becomes mandatory, it's a different story.
Right. Certainly you up the stakes a little bit. And
thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, Cynthia, you got another question for us?
Not a question, a suggestion.
Sure.
The gentleman asked about washing the shower curtains with plastic. I use a shower spray, and every time I take a shower, I spray the tile and I spray the plastic shower curtain, and it's a disinfectant. So you might want to leave that. So I bought one for both of my bathrooms in my house. Suggestion.
Thank you.
Good suggestion. And you don't know every guest's habits or concerns or what they want. So it's not like you're going to ask, would you like to leave us to leave certain sort of products? I think you just got to use your best judgment on what to provide, just to make your guests feel comfortable at the home. Thank you, Cynthia. There are no more hands raised. Anybody else have a question? Feel free to raise your hand. We're winding up.
I have a question.
Joan has a question herself.
It's actually not a question, it's a comment. I was talking to Elaine, one of our homeowners, or emailing, and she has bought a fogger in case anyone is interested in that. Now, again, that's a step beyond anything that most people are doing. I know that some probably hotels are doing it. Some cleaners, some professional cleaners, but she went on to Amazon and bought this fogger that's called the Super Handy Fogger Machine. And it cost about $270, and then she had to buy the disinfectant for it. That was about $35 a gallon. And I'm sure it lasts for a long time, but she has a couple of cottages and she's tried it out. And she seems to feel that it's effective. And, you know, again, just gives the incoming guests a sense of you know, peace that that the home has been thoroughly disinfected. So that you could easily go on to Amazon and just check it out and the details. And the other thing I wanted to say, still on the cleaning, is that you know, the first thing that cleaning crew would do when they come into a home is, you know, most likely clean all the surfaces like the kitchen counter and everything. And our cleaner recommends using just Dawn in a spray bottle with some water. And, you know, that's the first step, the cleaning, just the basic cleaning. And after that, then a sanitizer. And Windex makes a multi-surface disinfectant spray that you just leave on for 10 minutes and then you wipe it off. That's what they're using on, well, all hard surfaces and such as kitchens and bathrooms, and then also on door handles, etc. And I found a Purell professional surface disinfectant. 30 seconds, it says. And I found that at a vacuum store, but you can get that on Amazon too. So I'm just leaving this for my renters to use if they want to.
I'll leave with just one story. I guess, you know, I talked to this group, although I'm not a homeowner myself. So I work with Joan and Beta and Lauren all with homes. So I'm living with kind of the best practices for homeowners. I, on the other hand, rent the homes and have been doing so for years and years. So I have 2 rentals this summer, one with my parents and my wife's parents, and then another with just my family. And we've been contacted twice. So our one set of hosts have reached out to us, given us the information. They've reached out to us multiple times. It's reassuring. We know what we're getting into. We had to reach out to our other host to get information. What are your procedures for the turnover this summer? Are you cleaning, or are you having a turnover cleaning crew come in? The response was pretty much, yes, we are. No more information, leaves us wondering. We now don't know, like, are they doing anything special? Do they have any rules? We have no idea. We're going to have to ask more questions. But you can see the difference between getting this information up front. We now are sure that one set of hosts are on top of it. The other host doesn't sound like, on the surface right now, they're doing anything different. And so we're going to try to get that information prior to going down in August, but just gives you another reason to reach out to your guests in advance. Don't wait for them to contact you, and certainly don't wait for them to check in before you relay any of this information.
I would just add, even if you don't feel like you know all the answers, just that reaching out to them, first of all, is really valuable. And it will start the conversation. It will encourage them to ask questions. And the key is that they know that you care and that you're doing everything that you can to make them not only physically safe, but that you care about their being excited about coming to your home, that you care about their peace of mind.
Yes, thank you, Beta. One last question. I'm going to bring Lisa back in, or Jane as well. So Lisa, if we got a couple minutes left.
Mine is very quick.
Sure.
It's just apropos of Joan saying about Purell professional disinfection and the Windex. do you know off the top of your head if either of these are any good for granite surfaces? We've been telling our renters, you know, all about disinfectant procedures, but we've been asking them to clean the granite countertops in the kitchen with very hot water and detergent, because we don't want them pitted, you know, with these things. So I just wondered if you knew.
I don't know, but I will look at the fine print. I can't see it right here, but and I will email you.
Thank you very much.
I think it's okay, but I'm
Yeah.
not sure.
All right, last question here. We have Jane. Jumped in. Jane, you got a question?
What about vacuum cleaners? Are we buying new vacuum cleaners? My feeling is if I have a vacuum cleaner and the cleaners use it, they're still vacuuming up last week's people's stuff and leaving stuff for this week's people. Can they use their own vacuum cleaners, the cleaners, and do the same thing? Are we buying or using?
Yeah, I think most professional cleaners bring their own vacuums. If they don't, they should just change the vacuum bag every week.
Okay.
When that solves it, rather than getting a new vacuum.
They bring their own. I just didn't know if I should say not to do that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Welcome. All right, I think we're at the end of our meeting, so I think we're going to wrap up for this week. Certainly, like always, you can always reach us by email. We will plan to do this again. I think our plan is to do this another couple weeks up till the first week of July and answer your questions, and then we'll see what sort of interest there is in this group of homeowners to continue this conversation. These weekly meetings, we may move it to a bi-weekly or monthly, but certainly we're not going to disband it altogether. So we'll keep it going. I think it's been helpful. Again, helpful for the group here, helpful for us on the We Need a Vacation side. So thank you for attending, and we'll give it a go next week as well.
Jim, did you just want to mention about the Facebook community page as well?
Sure. If you haven't heard or seen before, in the meantime, to get questions and answers from other local homeowners, we have a Cape Cod and Islands Facebook community group. The link is in the email that gets sent out after this meeting with the video and a link to the Facebook group. So if you're not on that group, feel free to join. You'll see a lot of questions similar to this, you know, where to get certain cleaning products, what do you recommend for certain situations? A lot of good conversations going on amongst just Cape and Islands vacation rental homeowners. So feel free to search that out or look for the email today or tomorrow with the video. We'll have a link to it. So thanks. All right. Thank you to everybody for joining, and we'll catch up.
See you next week.
Another great meeting. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.